call this meeting to order. October 6, 2020, Oconee County Council meeting is 6 p.m. We'll begin with the public comment session. Mr. Frankie Pearson.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm here on behalf of the Planning Commission. We wanted to present you with some of the work that we've been doing on the comp plan. And as y'all know, 2020 has been a really strange year with the floods, pandemic, tornadoes. The county employees were still producing even in these uncertain times. They've done great. Ms. Brock's leadership, under the direction of council, have pushed the employees to keep doing their best. The list that y'all have before you is a list of all the accomplishments that shows how the county is working to keep its comp plan updated, and it's our accomplishments that we've done this year during all the mess. I'm not going to read every one of them because there's like 25 or so, but the purpose to present you this list is to let you celebrate the wins publicly and give a round of applause to all the county employees for not just showing up, but getting the job done. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie.
Any other public comment? Any written comments can be delivered to Ms. Smith. Any council member comments at this time? Hearing none, we'll go to a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Mr. Root?
Yes, sir. Pray with me if you'd like to. Father, thank you again for this day you've made. It's a beautiful day. You've blessed us with many beautiful days here recently, and we're grateful. And if we're not grateful, help us to be grateful, making us appreciative hearts. No matter our station in life or our circumstances, we have things to be thankful for, and we are blessed as you've given us life. And you hold us together, you sustain us, you provide for us, and we need you. Help us to, in humility, remember that. We need you in this meeting. Pray for your wisdom. We need you in this county, this state, and in this country, and throughout the globe. We need your providence, your guidance, your wisdom, your spirit to guide everything that happens. I know that doesn't always happen, but I pray that it would more, that we would just fall in line with your will, with your plan for us, that we'd have eyes that see and ears that hear, and that we'd have loving hearts, and we'd follow you. In your name I pray, amen.
Mr. Chapman, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, sir. Need a motion to approve minutes September 15, 2020, regular meeting minutes.
Come on.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Elliott, second by Mr. Hart. Any amendments? All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Kane?
He said aye.
Actually, I believe it's muted.
Rosen?
Sorry, I was muted. I voted in favor of that. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, just make sure.
He's not president.
Okay. Need a motion to approve September 17th, 2020 special meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Elliott, second by Mr. Hart. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I wasn't here. Any administrator comments tonight?
Yes, sir, just two. One is a follow-up to Mr. Pearson's comment during the public comment, just for the benefit of the public and for council. The documents Mr. Pearson was speaking of are, of course, in your backup materials, and they are on the website. He said before you, and I did not want anyone to have the conception that they were not in the backup documents and they were handouts at this time. Second of all is, now that we have third and final of our supplemental budget appropriations passed for this year, we will resume creating the financial reporting each month. We wanted to make sure that when those reports came in, that it was not reflective of erroneous percentages when we had presented the budget and then increased any line item in there, looking as if expenditure percentages were decreasing. So just to make sure that we're clear and when those budget reports come out, we'll go over the first one so that we understand that they are consistent in the form as they were last year.
Okay. And just for reference, that's page 34 or 35 of 51 in backup material.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. Mr. Root, anything tonight?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just briefly, we added yesterday an item to the agenda. It was the first and only reading of an emergency ordinance. It's a mask ordinance for Oconee County facilities. We don't like to add things this late, but it came to my attention that the prior ordinance is going to expire before our next meeting. So this is just an extension of the prior ordinance. It only applies to county facilities. It's not a mask ordinance county-wide, just for county facilities. We've had this in place since August, but we felt the need to present it to council to extend it.
All right. Any other comments at that time? Okay. We'll move to open up public hearing for ordinance 2020-15, ordinance authorizing and consenting or ratifying the current assignment or assumption of an interest and that certain amended fee agreement dated as of December 1st, 2017, as previously assigned and ratified by ordinance 2019-15 dated May 21st, 2019, such current assignment from Parkway Real Estate Holdings, South Carolina, LLC, and such current assumption by Diversified Industrial Properties, LLC, and confirmed by iTech Buyer, LLC, as a controlling co-sponsor, and authorizing the execution and delivery of an agreement memorializing such current assignment and assumption and current consent or ratification and other matters related thereto. No one has signed up for public hearing. If you'd like to come forward on ordinance 2020-15, you can. Any written comments can be delivered to Ms. Smith. I'll move to close public hearing on ordinance 2020-15. I'll open public hearing on ordinance 2020-16, ordinance amending the Oconee County Conservation Bank Ordinance, OC Code Sections 2-398 through 2-409. No one has signed up for that. If you'd like to step forward with that, you can. Yes, sir. Just state your name for the record, please, sir.
Andrew Smith, I'm the chair of the Oconee County Conservation Bank. Here for any questions if you have them, but these are amendments to our ordinance for the Conservation Bank, mainly dealing with procedural issues that we've discovered through the last year and a half of taking applications and working with applicants.
Great. Thank you and your team of the bank
Absolutely.
board for their work in that as well. Okay. Any questions on that? Any other public comments on the public hearing? Okay, I'll move to close public hearing on ordinance 2020-16. And I'll move to open ordinance 2020-17, ordinance amending chapter 32 of the Oconee County Code of Ordinances in certain limited regards and particulars only regarding the establishment of recreational vehicle park development standards and other matters related thereto. We do have two people signed up. Mr. Pearson?
I'm here before you as a citizen and nothing else, speaking of my own accord. I'm for this ordinance. We need to get some, we're not trying to, I don't think we need to try to keep out businesses, but we also need to make sure they're safe for the public, that EMS and other emergency services can get to these businesses with the roads and the trash is kept up, where we keep the rodents down. And I'm totally for this ordinance to help get maybe some stability on this, these RV parks. Thank you.
Mr. Markovich?
Yes, sir. For the record, my name is Tom Markovich. I have issues with this particular ordinance, and part of it's not because I'm against regulations to create mobile home parks, but to me, I like simplification, but this one's a little oversimplified. For one thing, there's a lot of different references that talk about temporary living quarters, and yet it's not defined. In most of the mobile home, or not mobile home, but RV park regulations I've ever read, they define exactly what temporary living quarters are. The other thing is it's used in a way, I mean, most of the time, if you go to state law, they'll make reference to temporary living quarters, but it's in reference to the type of vehicle it is, not about, specifics as to how it's being applied to a particular mechanism that you're trying to regulate who is living there. I mean, stop and think about some of these vehicles. You could have somebody maybe it is a temporary living quarter. You may have somebody who lives in it full time, but they go from one part to another part to another part. Well, they stayed there temporarily in each part, but they live in the thing full time. And part of my problem is that there are people who I understand live in this county in some of these vehicles full time. And there's what I consider something that is kind of tagged on here to where if it doesn't meet the requirements of the specifics of this particular regulation, that then the zoning administrator has the ability to use the subdivision regulations to try and define it. Now, part of the problem is none of these things that people are living in, I don't care if you do put an addition on it, it's not a dwelling. It doesn't meet any of the definitions of dwelling at all. Never has, and it never will. The other thing is, even as far as the zoning, there's a thing in here that says, well, the underlying zoning requirements will apply to how these parks are being done in terms of setbacks and everything else. Almost all of the requirements in the zoning ordinance refer to dwellings. And even if it's a legitimate park, you're still talking about dwellings, and these things are not dwellings. My issue with this is that it has not been refined. It's nice to have simple, but this thing is just not cutting it. It's going to create more uncertainty than it will certainty. Thank you.
Any other comments on public hearing ordinance 2020-17? Any written comments can be delivered to Ms. Smith. I'll move to close public hearing ordinance 2020-17. We will go to third reading ordinance 2020-15. This is the iTech South Parkway Real Estate Holdings. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
A motion by Mr. Elliott, second by Mr. Hart. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The third reading on ordinance 2020-16. This is the Conservation Bank ordinance. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
A motion by Mr. Elliott, second by Mr. Hart. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ordinance 2020-17, which is the RV development standards. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. McCall.
Tom Markovich brought up some very valid points. Another thing, we're unique in this county. We have, because of Duke Power, we have a ton of transient people coming in every outage. They park camper wherever they can find it. A lot of people, because of our economic situation, losing their jobs, they're living in whatever they can live in. And so what I'm worried about is you got people that they can't afford nothing else. So they live wherever they can live. And then we have our little inspector that we talked about last week that I was counseled about, which I really don't care. And he shows up and tells guy, you can't live there, the family, y'all, this doesn't meet the zoning or whatever, complaints and everything. So we're basically, through the thought of doing good, we're causing harm to people that do not have as much as we got. You know, it doesn't, and then the other thing is, we're gonna discourage these people coming in? That's all they got to live in? Over in Utica, hell, they live in whatever they can scrounge together. They got no other place to go. Now we want to set a standard for them. I think this thing ain't thought out right. It's just not right. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is about health and safety of the folks that we're trying to protect right now. And it doesn't affect the current RV parks. So it's just about new ones. And so it wouldn't be kicking anybody out. It would be providing safety and healthy places for folks to live in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Some discussion that's kind of been brought up on this is, just like what Mr. McCall said, you know, somebody that's living in a camper that's been brought to a place. Some issues that have came through there that we have had to help with is making sure it's actually hooked up to a sewer system. And we have had issues to where campers have not been hooked up to sewer systems that we've gotten calls on. That's not, this one is really just around RV park development standards, just making sure that as those parks that are hooked up, and obviously we know how many people travel, you know, we all have friends that travel as engineers and different things like that, and their camper goes from place to place, from state to state to state. So this is the creation of new parks. So those existing parks that are in there, there's a clause in here that reads, just let me pull it up here. So existing recreational vehicle parks, it's 32-606. Recreational vehicle parks existing prior to this enactment of the ordinance are exempt from this article. So just a point of clarification, this is not necessarily somebody that pulls a camper up behind their house and hooks it up and has their mother-in-law or something like that living in it. This is around somebody that's hooked up and has 5 to 6 of these that doesn't have the sewage system necessary for those places to dump, and it becomes an unsanitary place. And we have had issues like that, that it's not fair to even the people that live there. And for somebody that does have a heart, just like all of us sitting up here do for people that are trying to get by, this is actually for the protection of those, to make sure that they're not put in a situation like that, because it's not fair for them to be put in a situation to where all they have is that camper and they're living in filth, and it's not their fault. So this is actually around RV park development standards to actually make sure that, number one, there's a place for the water and the sewage and stuff like that to go. Number two, make sure that it's a safe place for them to park, that it's, you'll read in here where it talks about all-weather road, hard-packed graded surface, to make sure that when they're in their camper, it's not going to fall off a bank or something like that. So these are some things that I know that was addressed through the planning commission and the planning department that has seen in other counties get out of control because people are taking advantage of these people that have nothing, and that's not fair. So I think this is actually directed around safety for those people, not around, you know, our traveling people, our traveling nurses, our traveling engineers that are going place to place and place. We're not having that issue because honestly, we're a very welcoming community with the amount of RV parks and the amount of investments that we've made in our parks. So I just wanted to bring that up. And if anybody had any questions, I know Mr. Chapman's here tonight. I know it's came through Planning Commission. If any council has anything or y'all want to state anything, you're more than welcome to as well. And that's page 26 in backup material for anybody looking at that. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. We got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Aye. We have no second reading, no first reading. We do have a first and only reading that Mr. Root brought up earlier. This is ordinance 2018, emergency ordinance requiring individuals to wear face covering in certain facilities owned and operated by Oconee County. This is not touching any other businesses. This is not changing what's up on there. It also has the permissions in there Mr. McCall has brought up of those that for whatever reason cannot wear one in there, same ordinance that we had up there. Do I have a motion to approve for extension?
So moved.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We have no first and final. We do have discussion on update on completed comprehensive plan items by the planning commission. Ms. Brock, you want to run that, or?
This was what Mr. Pearson was speaking of previously. There's no necessary action per se, other than just accepting the document and the actions taken by staff and the planning commission. If you guys want to go over it, it's perfectly fine. This is more of an update and, a consistency document to let you all know, as Mr. Pearson has said, that even though this 2020 has been a challenging year, the comprehensive plan and implementation of the ideas in that comp plan have not been ignored or put aside. Essentially, what you'll need to do is just accept this completed part of the plan and direct staff to continue in its measures to work with the planning commission, other agencies as necessary to continue our efforts in completion of the comprehensive plan.
There's 25 strategies that's listed in the backup material available on our website for those that want to review it. This is not a, action item that will be, doing something. It's a matter of accepting what's being done
Correct.
through the planning commission. I just want the public to be aware of that. So this is not an action that something's gonna happen because of this. This is just looking through what they're doing. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. So do I have a motion to, accept the completed comprehensive plan items by planning commission?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank the county staff and the planning commission for all the hard work during these trying times. Thank you.
I'll definitely second that. I know it takes a lot of time to do this, and I'm grateful for the amount of research coming through there, the amount of ideas that's coming out of there, and, and the public that is attending and talking through that. I think this has been a great, 2020 is trying, but we did a lot of great stuff through 2019, going through the comprehensive plan together and setting that up, and having the public input on that was great, and thank you for your, everybody in the planning commission and staff for that as well. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Not voting.
All right. We do have some board and commissions. I know those are coming across, the October 20th or after November is what I'm understanding with mine. Executive session. Need a motion to enter an executive session to receive legal advice regarding a contractual matter.
So moved.
Second.
Cole made the motion, second by Mr. Elliott. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to reconvene.
Make a motion. Second.
All in favor? Aye. No action was taken in executive session. We have no action coming out of executive session. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion. Second.
All in favor? Aye.